Hi, my name is Molly Boygan. I'm with WGBH, and you're watching Make Way for Millennials, our series about issues that millennials are dealing with. This episode is about dating, millennial dating. Very excited to have you. You can ask questions via Facebook Live or on Twitter. We're on the homepage at WGBH.org. So thank you so much for being here. Here are our guests. We're with Neely Steinberg. She's a dating coach and founder of The Love Trap. We have Kevin Murray, founder and CEO of Icebrkr, and Melissa Shore, editor of Dinner with Cupid at the Boston Globe. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So first off, I'd just like to pose a question to all of you, and we could just go down the line. Is romance alive and well for the millennial set? Neely, why don't you start?
Yeah, of course it is. I mean, it may take a different form or different shape than, say in the 1950s, 1960s, 70s, 80s. But yeah, and I think no matter what age, people truly yearn for and desire intimacy and vulnerability and love and connection. So yes, it's very much alive. It just may look a little bit different than decades ago.
Yeah. Kevin, what do you think?
I think the simplicity of the apps like Tinder and Bumble have made, whether it's the proper term or not, they're kind of like the gateway drugs to online dating, where you used to, I'm getting older, but when I started online dating, you couldn't talk about it until you were 28 or 30, and even then people thought it was taboo, and you were on Match or eHarmony. And now, the Pew Research Center, there's a study, they should be coming out with one soon, but from 2013 to 2015, online dating tripled in ages 18 to 24. That's all because of Tinder. So they made it socially acceptable for that age bracket to hop on online dating. Whether they take it seriously or not in that stage is a different story, but it's socially acceptable and the norm now for you to start earlier, which we hope at Icebrkr that's when you're ready to take it seriously thereafter. So.
Yeah. Melissa, what kind of romance do you see with the millennial set for Dinner with Cupid?
Well, I mean, we still have, we are 10 years now strong, so we see no sign of this stopping. People still love to read about romance every week. They love the search for it. They love the train wrecks too, but they love the hope. I mean, people tune in every week to read it because they want to see a column, they want to see someone work out. And I have to admit, we are 10 years, which means we've probably set up about 500 couples.
Wow.
We're still waiting for that wedding invitation. So come on, Boston. I don't know what's going on with our dating pool, but we still have hope.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll get there someday. I want to circle back to something you said, Kevin, that the barrier to online dating has really dropped. It used to be much more of an effort to get into online dating, and now the apps make it so accessible. But like you said, it creates this issue of people sort of entering the sphere without being serious about looking for a long-term commitment. Can you talk about the challenges that you experience with that?
So you mean the challenges with the newer technology and how simplified it is?
Yeah, and sort of, the barrier that people have to finding somebody who's serious about a relationship.
Yeah, so we still, I'm in a relationship, but my girlfriend understands I still keep myself in all the apps to always see what the features are and how they're doing, so it's, it's the best way I can do research for our own product. But my former professor, Jennifer Gibbs, who was at Rutgers when I was there, my mentor, she's left and went to Cal Santa Barbara, but we've kept in touch. So I've worked with her students twice, once at Rutgers and then once at Cal Santa Barbara. And so their demographic is when they do studies and our students do studies, it is that 18 to 22-year-old bracket. And, I see the quotes and all the information and the data that they get. And most of the time, people they are checking it out. Mm-hmm. Eventually, when they want to when you want to graduate to something more serious, I'm worried that jump is not worried. It's why I think we're positioning ourselves. I don't think they want to jump to Match and eHarmony. I mean, eHarmony's onboarding used to be 460 questions. I mean, it was just crazy, right? The thing would take, I'm a former dating coach, it would take me a day to put a client on there. It was just mind-numbing, it was just too much. And those Match and eHarmony were built for computers. They're doing a better job. They're constantly updating. Match has been going through a lot of updates, try to optimize it and shrink the profile. You have to see different things to display it. But I think millennials, I hope they don't think that, what in life can you put 5 minutes into and expect good results? And anything in life.
Right.
Yeah, we're asking that with some of the sites like Tinder and Bumble. And I'm not trying to I wish I had $1 billion company, right? But I think that some people think that, that's it. You just need 5 or 6 pictures and that's it. And some people don't think the different layers of what happens is, some of these sites used to auto pull your default photos from Facebook, and you think of your default photos from Facebook. Sometimes you have doppelgangers or something like that. Like when I was younger, I had curly hair and I looked like Hasselhoff from Knight Rider. If I just left that, you shouldn't recommend doing that in a dating profile. So a lot of those simplicities are, I think, diluting the quality of dating.
Yeah. Yeah. Neely, do you experience that?
Well, I do. I mean, I think there are so many apps now pertaining to dating. And so I think when you have so many options, it's almost like being in the supermarket, right? And having so many options that you get overwhelmed. And I think for dating apps, there are so many that I think people get on them, they maybe try it for a little bit, and then they try another and another and another. And so it just sort of adds to this frenzy. And it then becomes sort of the paradox of choice, right? Like how do I even make a choice now? I mean, I remember when I was dating, I was on and off Match for many, many years. But I do remember this feeling of almost FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. Like you'd go out on a date with a guy and it would be great, right? It'd be a good date. But then you'd secretly in the back of your head be thinking, what about that guy and that guy who emailed me and that guy? And so it almost makes it harder for you to kind of just stick kind of with one person and really kind of see where that leads, because you're just, now it's with, okay, you're on a Match and then you're on 3 other dating apps and you're bombarded by all these people.
Right.
And so that might add to sort of this frustration and confusion a little bit.
So we just did a Cupid reunion, and we talked to people about their dating experience. And one of the big things they kept bringing up was the ghosting, obviously. And I think what it showed to me is they really love the dating apps, and they believe that they would ultimately, wade through all those people and find someone better than if they had just, as they said to me, everyone in the 90s just married someone from their high school. I don't think that's really true, but their take was that eventually they will come to a better person by going through it. They had faith. I question that because I worry about the lack of accountability with ghosting. They love the idea that you're meeting someone outside of their social circle. If the date crashed and burned, no one would ever know. But I think that takes away a lot of just good behavior. People don't have to behave well when they're dating a stranger that they have contacted online. In the olden days, when people met through social circles, there was a little bit of pressure to not just ghost someone and never say anything. Your friends would get on you for doing that, right? And so I feel like that is the key problem that we have to solve. How do you expand your social circle, use the apps to meet new people, but still have that pressure of behaving well and treating people well? Because otherwise, I think we're going to just get burned out and have a lot of bitter daters.
Yeah, I actually have just a small point about that. I lived on the Vineyard for a couple summers, then one full season. I online dated from the Vineyard, which good time during the winter. But that whole respect thing, you need to respect someone, because if you go through an intersection and flip someone off, you're going to be next to them in the grocery aisle 5 minutes later. So that tight-knit is kind of old school, where there is some pressure to not ghost and treat people respectively, because everybody knows everybody and word will get back. And I think that's how kind of the old school mentality. So I got to experience a little bit of throwback. It was nice, but also you couldn't go on a date without anybody else in the town knowing. So anyway.
I do think that question of accountability is interesting, because it's so easy if you're just looking at somebody's face on a screen and not face to face, to just sort of blow them off, ghost them. I think it also contributes, we see now a lot of people participating in the apps, chatting, but not necessarily actually going on dates.
Yeah, well, this is one of my biggest frustrations, and something I see a lot with my own clients, is that it's just this constant back and forth. Hey, what's up? Not much. How are you? And it's just this, over a series of days and weeks, it's these little tiny, one sentence lines that people are sending back and forth to each other. And it never ends up going anywhere, right? It never ends up going. And I mean, the whole point of being online is to get offline and to go out and meet people in person.
Right.
But a lot of these apps lend themselves to those sort of quick exchanges that never go anywhere.
So how do you get your clients to take that extra step?
So I usually say, if it's been going on these sort of text exchanges back and forth for several days, right? Nip it in the bud. I don't care you're a woman. It's 21st century. Can either say, I'd love to grab a drink sometime, or would you like to grab a drink? So it's either make a statement about it if he responds, and I work primarily with women,
right.
But this could apply to all genders and all sexual orientations. But either make a statement and see if he picks up on it, or just say, would you like to grab a drink sometime? And if the person falls off, then you have your answer.
Right. Yeah. It sort of, like you said, it nips that issue in the bud.
Right.
Kevin, that reminds me. When I was looking at the information about you and saw that you had been working at eFlirt, Emily, the producer, described that to me as sort of like ghostwriting people's profiles in a way. What kinds of things were you crafting to ensure that you would get that action from another person, not just chatting, but what makes people take that extra step on the other end?
Well, first I got to ground it because people think, isn't that catfishing? So the client had full autonomy along the way, right? So some clients were more involved than others. Some were like, this is what you said and this is what they said and here's where you're dating. We didn't want people to act like that, but sometimes that's what happened. But the best ones were the clients that were full participants. So we would kind of wordsmith things. We would help. That's why it's called Icebrkr. But we'd help break the ice, right? So, but the profile we'd make sure was grounded in reality. They would approval process, a questionnaire, ask all the follow-up answers, and then try to find, make sure you create those avenues of conversation. So when we go to start those conversations online, we try to look for it the other way. But I'm sure, as Neely knows, you can only make so many miracles happen. So every once in a while, you have a client, they'll have these rules and these deal breakers, and then there's always an exception to the rule, always. And then they'll find some guy they like, he looks like Patrick Swayze or something, and of course, Swayze wrote nothing in his profile, and I can't see below his waist. You like this guy, though, great, so this is the guy you want me to message. All right, you're the client, I'll do what you want, and there's nothing to start a conversation with.
Yeah.
But you're paying us. I can't write, and I'm never going to. I'm not going to write, hey there. That doesn't work. But I have to pull something, so I will look at photos and try to find some unique landmark and try to say, oh, you were at the Boston Public Library. That's a horrible icebreaker, but you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
If you were at a sporting event or something like that, you were at the Patriots parade. Oh, I was there. Where were you standing? I was near Copley. And so what we try to do is, I should probably trademark this someday. Someone's going to steal it, but call it CSIs of online dating: connect, share, and inquire. So try to follow those. So connect about something, share your own aspect about it, and then ask a question. If you don't ask a question, it just lingers, and then the conversation can just stall out.
Yeah, and you mentioned this issue of people, creating a list of things that they're interested in, and then there are exceptions. And I think sometimes it ends up, in a lot of cases, people looking for something they think they want, and then it turns out that the thing that's actually best for them is completely different. Melissa, can you talk about what it's like matching people for...
So frustrating, because honestly, I think at the end of the day, people don't really know what they want. They know what they don't want. They don't know what they want. And I get it both ways. If I set up two people that seem to have so much in common, similar backgrounds, similar jobs, they go on the date and they say, there was no spark. He was what my mother would have wanted, but not what I would have wanted. The worst. But then when I put people together and I think, well, opposites sometimes attract. Let's put an engineer with an artist together. Oh, it's worse. We had nothing in common. Why did you set us up? And they're very angry about it. So it can be very frustrating to find that nugget. And
you're not on the date, right? So you don't know. And at Rutgers, I studied every angle of relationships. We studied body language. And you don't know, the sparks. I talked to some clients too. Do you have closed off body language? Are you like this on the date? And I always say this too. This is not a trademark thing, but like Shakira, hips don't lie. So if you're on a date, right, you don't know if say this is the person that's complaining about it, and say, well, the chemistry wasn't there and the sparks weren't there. You need to show open body language that you're interested in your listening. So sometimes the negative body language, when you're not on the date as a dating coach, that's out of your control. Unless you're sitting there kind of watching in the background, it might have been your problem. You might not have created those sparks, and that's hard to know.
I would say that one of the best things, obviously we all love to read the Dinner with Cupid dates, but the best thing about it as well that I've realized is that for the people that go on the dates, they get feedback of how they are seen on a date, which you normally don't get. If you go on a date and someone goes to you, never hear from them again, you're left wondering, what did I do, right? But for Dinner with Cupid participants, they get to read it the next week. Oh, wow, he thought I was closed off. He thought I came across too strong, too bold, too this. And I think sometimes that can be great feedback that they're not going to get any other way.
Yeah. So I was just piggybacking off of what you were talking about. Is one thing I like to say is sometimes what you want in a partner is different than what you may actually need. And people can create these lists of all these things that they think they want in somebody, and it sort of feeds into this fantasy of what they've always dreamed would bring happiness into their lives. And in reality, it's actually very different than what they need to be in a thriving, healthy, happy, committed relationship. So I encourage people to really spend time with that. Okay, here are all things you want, right? Somebody who's a good dresser, somebody who's 6'4", somebody who's, not bald, somebody who has this type of job, somebody who drives this type of car, a lot of those sort of ego-driven things. And then in another category, here's what I really need, right? Here's what I need. I need somebody to be trustworthy. I need somebody to be consistently dependable and reliable in my life, and really focusing in on those values. And that's going to help, that's going to help you really start appreciating and having a curiosity about the guys you do meet out on dates. Again, I work primarily with heterosexual women, but really focusing in on those qualities. And that's going to make your experience, I think, a lot better.
Yeah. We are getting a bunch of different questions from people on Facebook Live. I do want to remind folks in the audience, you can write questions to us on Facebook Live. You can write questions to us on Twitter. Let's start with one from Olivia. She wants to know, how do you keep from being discouraged on apps since they're a numbers game? I think, that's something a lot of people experience. It can be just sort of deadening to have to, slog through the many, many folks on the app. So who wants to start? I'm not sure.
Yeah, so the first and foremost, I always like to point the problem, I'm not saying she has a problem, but usually look at yourself first. So before you go to the abundance of swiping through mindlessly, maybe you're not catching someone's eye. So maybe your profile's not optimized, right? So we like to call the first 4 pictures the core 4. So the order matters, right? So because at E4, I can test all this stuff all the time. We would switch someone's thumbnail or default photo, and the profile views would go through the roof. So the order matters, right? So, but in the apps, they're different. So you're going through and you're swiping. You only have a few seconds to make a decision. I don't know if our profile's like this, but if you're playing Where's Waldo and it's a bunch of group photos and you're going through the first 3, I'm out. If I can't tell you are in the first 3, it's just the way everybody is now. Maybe 10 years ago, when you're typing, like an old school typewriter, old dating style, you're conditioned to be patient. And we're not conditioned to be patient anymore. So making sure the first 4 photos are optimized and you don't have cliches. So the optimization of the photos was, a headshot, a full body shot, storytelling photo, personality photo, or a travel photo. But you have to be in all of them. So because that can help you. I know you look like head to toe. I get a sense of what you're like, and I have a conversation started. If you nail those, I might not even need to see the written part of your profile. I mean, I still need it there. Because that's going to help your success. Because part of the reason why you might not be matching, be frustrated, is your profile's not good. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people aren't saying, "Oh, wait, I'm not the problem." No, a lot of you are the problem. You are the problem. I knew, I wouldn't be sitting here if I didn't admit that I was a problem. I actually went on Match for practice dates because I didn't know what I was doing. So I did a lot of practice, and then eventually, I think I got better at it. But wouldn't advise anybody to treat it like practice. But essentially, you could play around with your profile too. The order and the clothing you wear, and we can go on this forever, but essentially I would make sure to take a look at yourself first and play around with that, because that is going to be your pitch. And if your sales pitch isn't good, you're not going to match anybody, you're going to be frustrated. That's the only thing you can control.
Well, I was going to say, one good tip is ask friends what they think of your profile, right? Like, say you're a heterosexual guy, right? Ask your female friends, what do you think, who are also heterosexual, what do you think of this profile? And ask them for honest feedback, because, it is amazing when I go online for clients, and I'm just amazed at the, the lack of just trying when it comes to people's profiles.
Yeah.
And, if you can if you don't want to hire a coach, like someone like me to look at your profile, or someone like Kevin, ask people, get honest feedback, and make your profile as good as it possibly can be, because you're in a sea of thousands. How are you going to stand out? Not just with your photos. That's the foot in the door. So your photos have got to be great. But also think about reading a great piece of literature or a great article, right? Like, how can you engage this person? How can you draw them in, right? Because otherwise, if you're just sort of an average middling profile, it's not gonna get the attention that you deserve.
I want to just piggyback off of that. Another question from Facebook, also from Olivia. How much time should you put into creating your profile? And I want to sort of just tack something onto this. I think a lot of people think about love and romance as these very intangible, kind of flowy ideas and to make them sort of algorithmic in this way might turn some people off. So, how I guess if you could roll sort of both of those responses into one, how much time should you spend on your profile, and simultaneously, how to make this process feel authentic for people?
Well, I would say not 5 minutes, like we talked about earlier. If you put 5 minutes in your profile, like what can you put 5 minutes into anything in life and expect good results, right? But people do that on a lot of these dating sites. So I got interviewed for an article in Men's Health a couple of weeks ago, and they were talking about how to optimize your Tinder profile. And one of the tricks that I try to tell people is if you can write the profile from computer, write it from there. We write strange from our phone, like the whole text lingo doesn't work on dating profiles, and sometimes the LOL and OMG, all that stuff is just, I don't know. I don't think that belongs in profiles, especially the emojis. It's not really, I don't get a sense of your writing style. It's just, it's slang. So I try to tell people to write, especially with those limited character counts for those shorter apps, is I usually write inside a word character counter, like there's plenty of free ones online, right in there, because there's only 500 characters. So if you had a full sentence, you might realize there's another good nugget in there about you that you want to put in there. So you have to play around with it. It's easier to play around with it in there and edit it, and then when it's ready, then go in there from your phone, copy and paste it, and put it over. A lot of people are writing them raw, right on the profile. Not good, because then there's like room for typos and spell checking and all those things. You should write it off the computer and then write it from somewhere else, and then bring it to the profile.
One other good thing too is spend some time doing research. Click into other people's profiles, right? What are the really good ones? What are the profiles that stand out and why? And try to apply that to your own profile, right? Because sometimes you'll go and like the feeling you get when you see someone's profile and it's so well written and it's just engaging and interesting, and it makes you want to email the person back. Take that and apply it to your own profile. So don't just get on there, put something up. Go do research. Find out what makes a profile good.
Melissa, I want to...
Can I just say,
sure.
Is it blasphemy to also, the first writer, questioner, really sounded burned out. I mean, can you take a little detox time from the apps and take a break? Is that okay? And try to meet some people just the old-fashioned way. I talked to our Cupid reunion people, and they really felt like they just turned down every other way we were suggesting. Meet someone at the gym, meet someone at the bar, meet someone, go to a meetup group, go to a social sports club, like all those ways to just expand your circle and put yourself out there in other ways in the real world.
Right.
Worth a try. It often works.
I was going to ask you about something that came up in one of your earlier answers that I've noticed too, this conversation that happens sometimes in dinner with Cupid about the spark.
Yes.
And I noticed in the commenters of the Boston Globe website, people get very worked up about the concept of the spark because their contention is, you may not feel a spark on the first date. It may take more than one date to feel a connection with somebody. And, basically that everybody, if there's good conversation, if you had a good time, you might as well kind of give that person another shot. Can you speak to that issue? How important is chemistry on a first date, and is it sort of the end all be all the way people think it is?
I think chemistry is everything, and the best I can do is to get two people together that have the right demographics and a shot at it, and then let chemistry do the rest. And I actually think our readers are a little wrong in this situation. I think they really want to see that spark, and I think what they're not realizing is that, yes, sometimes you know someone, let's say a coworker, things develop over time, your friendship evolves. I think that's too much to expect on a first date. I think on a first date with coming to a stranger, what you are looking for is that chemistry, that person seems right on paper, but until you get them in the same room, you're just not going to know. And let's all face it, we know within 2 minutes of meeting someone whether it's that spark or not. And so I think that we have to really respect them. I mean, I also do think that if the spark isn't there, could be a euphemism for something else that they were really too polite to put into words. Maybe they found something in the real world date that just wasn't right about that person. They're not going to say that, so they blame it on, oh, the chemistry wasn't right. So I think we need to respect our daters, cut them some slack. If they go out and in the real live date it just isn't there, it isn't there.
I agree. I think chemistry is important, but it's only part of the equation. I think that oftentimes you hear about, oh, well, it didn't really click for me until the third, fourth date. So if there's a spark of something, it doesn't have to be on a scale of 1 to 10. It doesn't have to be a 10, right? Like less, you feel it in your loins, like this connection's amazing, but it shouldn't be a 1 either. So if there's a spark of something, maybe give it a second. I mean, haven't you heard those stories where your friends say, well, I wasn't really into him until like the second or third or even fourth date?
Right.
And sometimes that slow burn of chemistry, or that slow burn of feeling like you sparks with someone, can actually be a really great relationship. Right. Whereas a lot of the times when I went out with somebody and it was, a 10 from the get-go, those are always the ones that crashed and burned for me because I had tunnel vision. I would sweep things under the rug, right? I wouldn't keep an eye out for the yellow and red flags because I was so in lust and the chemistry was overwhelming, right? Yeah. So sometimes give it a little time to blossom.
So maybe when people get along, sometimes people come into our dates and they talk for 4 hours and they have a great conversation and they really have a good friendship going. And then they say, but the romance wasn't there yet and people want them to date again. Maybe the answer is, I'm going to introduce you to my friend who's similar to me, but maybe the spark will be with that person and we overlap in interest.
I love that idea.
So maybe that's what they should do.
I want to talk about this sort of concept of expectations, because I think something that millennials face a lot is you've heard about sort of a virgin dater phenomenon for millennials. Many millennials haven't dated much at all, and until the time they get to college or even after college. And for that reason, a lot of expectations are set by movies and TV shows that have either the image of perfection in a relationship or a completely dysfunctional relationship that's sort of romanticized. Where can people look for healthy relationship models? And you mentioned yellow and red flags. Where can people get ideas like that these days about what a healthy relationship actually looks like?
Yeah, I would say maybe turn away from the rom-coms, the Hollywood rom-coms, and the turn away from that sort of noise, right? And look around you to just your average normal relationships, right? Start looking for those types of relationships where you see two people who are in something healthy. It may not be perfect at all times, but it feels and looks healthy to you. Instead of focusing on all of this noise on social media and in Hollywood, and we were talking before the broadcast about how what we see on social media, right, is just everybody's perfect lives, right? We see these perfect vacations, perfect pictures, everybody looking perfect. And really, we don't know what's going on behind closed doors. Right. And so there's a lot of, I think, social media for younger people, there's a lot of comparison going on. There's a lot of assuming that their lives are better, their relationships are better, their dating lives are amazing, when in reality it may not be so. So really spending time away from that noise and looking in the real world for relationships around you that are healthy and looking to that as a role model as opposed to Hollywood and social media and all that stuff.
Yeah, Kevin, how do you help your clients sort of, determine what a healthy relationship looks like, and even in cases where what you're talking about, the spark is on a 10, but there are other factors obviously that determine what chance a relationship has of being successful.
Yeah, it's about setting expectations. I use a lot of analogies. Another one I use is like a game of musical chairs. The longer you wait, the older you get, you'll get a chair, but that chair might have 3 legs and a ripped seat cushion, right? So you're not going to get everything you want in the checklist of your ideals of what you want in a person. So you're going to have to somewhat, like Neely was saying before, about your wants and needs. What do you need right now? I know you want, and we have, with clients sometimes, if they've been married for 30 years, and whether they're widowed or divorced, they'll sometimes revert back to that, the 20-year-old, 30-year-old self, and you're 60 now, a lot's changed. You get clients that short circuit, well, I don't want a guy with gray hair. You're 50, huh? Right? So sometimes there's some learning a little bit. I try to encourage clients to go on dates because you learn more. You think you know what you want, but that resets every so often, especially resets if you haven't dated in 20, 30 years.
Right.
So getting out on those dates and realizing what you want, what you don't want, because those things do adjust and change.
We have what were you going to say, Melissa?
I was just going to say, from my perspective, I think people are right to be very selective, because the one piece of advice I would give looking back is that who you choose as a partner is probably going to be the most important decision in your life. It will impact everything for the next decades. More than who's in office, more than what city you're in, more than what job you choose. Who you make your life partner will be so so crucial. And so choose well. People are right to give this weight, and we're right to cover it journalistically. It's important.
Right. Yeah, we have a couple people on Facebook who are looking for advice about language. So I think I'll put these two together. Someone on Facebook who's unnamed asks, what does it mean if you ask someone what he or she is looking for and they say, quote, I just want to hang out? Does that mean they're just not looking for a serious relationship? And
Yes.
let's circulate that one first, actually.
Yes, the answer is yes. I think a lot of times, especially with women, they're trying to read into things and they're almost hoping he means something different. And I think a lot of times, most guys are going to be honest with you, you know? Like, if they're just looking to hang out, they're just looking to hang out. So, you know, I mean, a lot of guys might not say, well, I'm looking to be in a committed relationship within 2 to 3 months' time. I mean, they may not say that, but they probably will be honest. Yeah, I'm looking to meet somebody. If they're just looking to hang out, I don't know. What would you say?
That sounds like it comes from Tinder and Bumble. Because if you're on Match and you're paying $70 for 3 months, that's not a lot of money. But if you're paying for it and you expect some, you don't have to ask that question. That's part of why that's why Icebreaker exists. If you're asking that question, you're on the wrong site. That literally, if you have to ask that, then you're on the wrong site.
What do you think?
I think timing is everything. I think the most important thing that I should probably take more attention to when I make matches is, are people looking for the short term or the long term, and believe them. When someone tells you who they are, believe them, right?
Yeah.
Listen to them.
Yeah, that's important. And then on the other side of the coin, Matt on Facebook says, if you go on one date and aren't interested, do you have a suggested message you can send to let them down easy?
Peace out. No. I get that. We get that. You know, as a dating coach, get that all the time. How you kind of let them down, and I try not to encourage ghosting. I don't want clients to do that, but you can't make them do anything. So you try to respectfully say, more. You know, in heterosexual terms, you know, the females usually have a more difficult time dealing with the no's. So there's a client that I had recently that was saying, I think we could just be friends. I don't see this going further than tonight, which the guy's going, oh, so I got a chance. And then we just keep talking. Like, no, that was a nice way of saying no. So I had to tell her, if you're a different attractive, you're in the higher level tier as from the female perspective, you have to straight up be explicit. Like, I don't see this going further. You know, I wish you the very best. I don't think we're a good match. Saying you're just friends sometimes doesn't particularly work. It needs to be clear cut.
I mean, what does that even mean half the time, right? Like, are we going to go to the movies together? Are we going to go shopping
really
together? You know, it's sort of, I mean, I think most people understand that that's sort of just the polite way of saying, you know, good luck to you and take care. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the polite, respectful thing is to simply say, you know, I didn't feel the spark or the romantic spark, but I wish you well in your search, and, you know, take care. I think that's sort of the respectful way of ending things. And listen, you know, dating's hard. People have to put on their big boy and big girl pants sometimes. I mean, you get rejected, you get hurt, you get heartbroken sometimes. You know, you're into somebody, they're not into you. And this is all about learning how to the process of dating is oftentimes learning about how to deal with rejection, but not taking it personally, not making up a story about yourself based on one date not working out, right? Not making up a story about yourself based on what this guy thinks, or, you know, the fact that he didn't ask me out, right? And so it's not taking it so personally, just moving on.
Yeah. What would you say?
One of my daters recently told me her best strategy for dealing with being ghosted, and I loved it, and I thought I'd share it with you guys. She said she basically will send the person ghost emojis until they respond.
Oh, wow.
So I thought that was genius, and we should all adopt that. If you're being ghosted, keep sending them ghost emojis. Make them answer you.
The thing about that, though, is because, you know, I've been ghosted on back when I was single and dating, and it does hurt. It hurts. But at the end of the day, you know, if a person disappears on you, like, I feel like you're never going to get closure anyways, right? I mean, would you really need to hear the words, like, I'm just not interested anymore? Especially maybe if it's been like a month of dating and the person just disappears on you. I sometimes feel like people are looking for this concrete answer of what went wrong, what did I do? And a lot of times you're just not going to get that. So the easiest thing is to just kind of say, this person wasn't meant for me, and it's time to move on.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think honesty is the best policy, so that seems to be across the board here. Another question from Facebook, which I think is a really good one. Esther wants to know, sometimes guys are shy and we need to set things up. What's a good time of day and place to go? And I would just add to this, I think a lot of people who don't drink have a difficult time finding places to go on dates, so I would just tack that on too. People who are shy and people who may not be into the traditional night scene.
Yeah.
I think we get a lot of critique. People are always saying, can't we do not just a dinner date or not a, coffee, dinner, all those face-to-face is boring and an activity is always better. Unfortunately, we don't have the bandwidth to start organizing like roller skating dates or whatever, but I feel like you guys do. So I mean, I think an activity is always the best way to go, right? It gives the focus, it gives you another thing to focus on.
And what's the site? How about we? Is that the site?
It's gone now.
What is it?
We used to put clients on. I like that site.
I thought it was an interesting concept. Yeah, it was about how about we go to the museum together, and you just suggested different activity dates as opposed to just the coffee or the drink or the whatnot. But I mean, the first date doesn't always have to be about an activity. It's just coffee date is fine. A drink, even just like a walk along the Commonwealth Mall. Doesn't have to be some elaborate thing. Sometimes it's just about sitting with somebody and kind of just seeing if there's something there.
Yeah, I think that the atmospheres are important. I mean, everybody has their own rules of engagement, and I call them, like, when I was dating for a while, I had, like, the vampire rule. I don't want to be out in light, and I don't know, there's no romance. Talk about sparks. I don't think there's going to be sparks at noon, the sun's out. That's just me. That's my template, right? So I felt like the sparks, it needs to be dark, and I got sports addiction, so I kind of need to see the Bruins in the background. I'll pay attention, but I need to see them out of my periph. And music where it's just loud enough where you kind of can lean in, but not creepy lean in. And that was my sweet spot. But you got to find out what your sweet spot is, which is why I say just go out on dates. I mean, there are different opportunities, but there's just something about daylight in the middle of the day. It's just not going to create sparks. I mean, if there is an opportunity to make a move, you're going to do it right there.
Right, and I mean, also for a first date, like, how elaborate are you going to get, right? I mean, you don't even know this person. I mean, so I think usually that I just recommend a coffee, a drink at night, a walk somewhere, something simple.
I've been thinking we've been putting an emphasis on getting to that point of face-to-face communication. And I think something that varies widely across millennials is the relationship that people have to technology. And I'm curious, how you all have been factoring into your professional decisions about your clients and setting people up for dinner with Cupid. You don't want to set somebody up with somebody who isn't, who's like addicted to his or her phone and, is frequently on social media and, views themselves as an influencer of some kind with somebody who's totally off the grid. Can you talk about how, a person's relationship to digital devices might be or might not be a sort of, factor in a good match?
Not something I've had a lot of experience with. I don't know.
Many things that come ahead of that. That's like probably number 30 on the list of things.
Yeah.
So you're talking about how technology affects relationships, essentially.
Yeah, and when you're looking for qualities in another person, you would want to be with somebody who is, if you text a lot, someone who also texts a lot.
I definitely have a couple. I'll keep them short stories, but there was one time when I was on a date when I was down in New Jersey at Rutgers, and the date was going fine, and then she started picking up, and this is nonverbal communication essentially, picking up the phone, and some people can't do both, eye contact, look up and do it. This is kind of just, and the date was going fine, and she was on her phone, I just looked at her and said, this date was going great, and then when we started using the phone, it just went like this, and I just made the crashing noise, and it literally felt like she wasn't paying attention to me. And maybe that was her body language, I got enough of this guy, but I definitely have seen that with people, and then different clients have talked about being able to, it's a date, just put your phone down for a couple hours, turn it off and not look at it. The other aspect, I'll use my own personal life. I'm not even friends with my girlfriends for 3 years, and I won't be. I don't, because before, when you're in relationships,
on Facebook, you mean?
Yes, on Facebook. Yes. You would share all this personal stuff, and I just drew a line. I said, stop. You have to go back and delete it, and people want to share their relationship, the ideal self, actual self, and ideally this is so great. You don't post a bunch of stuff usually, you shouldn't, when it ends bad, or it ends. Usually it ends because it usually doesn't end good. But I don't do that because I just don't want to put my private life out there. So I need to find someone that's comfortable with that. Obviously she is, but yeah, the technology can definitely be an odd dynamic that you don't think about at the time. But you know, I have a cousin that, you know, is seeing someone that's a little bit younger, but so she's always about, you know, using different things on Instagram and posting about the relationship. So you got to be comfortable with that. I mean, he is, but me, I already told you about how I am. So you got to be comfortable with what you want to share that's out there. Some people feel like they have to do it, and others, I mean, I don't really like Facebook that much, but you know, it depends.
Yeah. Melissa, you were saying that that's sort of at the bottom of the list for you.
Yeah.
And you were saying earlier that, you know, making a choice in partner is obviously a really important one. But we were also talking earlier about the kind of paralysis of choice. And so I'm wondering what advice you all would have for people. You know, obviously at a certain point you should make a decision and, you know, make a decision at the right time, but you don't want to make a decision rashly about such an important decision. So, you know, how do people strike that balance? Melissa, why don't you start?
Well, I was just just going back to what we were saying a minute ago, I think that with the technology, people love the Cupid date because it is the one place today where you can go on a date and the person hasn't Googled you, doesn't know everything about you already, hasn't seen your profile and your pictures and your vacations, and they go into it completely blind, but they have an amazing discussion, even if it's not ultimately meant to be. Just the freedom of going into that kind of situation, dating, and talking to someone for 3 hours, putting your phone down and really getting to know them. I think that they just love that experience, and I think it's rare. You don't get that really anywhere else today. So it's sort of sad. It's this unique, shining little moment for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I already forgot the question. I was zoning out for a second.
Do you want to go?
No, yeah, maybe kind of.
Yeah, sure. I'll say it again. So sort of striking the balance between, you know, not waiting too long and not being seized by paralysis of choice when it comes to making a decision about your partner, but also giving it the you know, the weight and the thought that a decision like that deserves.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think, you know, working with a coach or having a, you know, a relationship mentor, maybe that could be a friend who's in a healthy, happy relationship, or even working with a therapist. So you're spending time actively reflecting on what's coming up for you on dates, right? You know, what are your deeper relationship fears? What are your unhealthy patterns? What are your deeper insecurities, right? So that you can kind of come to this place of conscious awareness in your love life, and you're spending the time thinking about it and reflecting instead of just kind of dating and not thinking about it and on to the next. And you know, a lot of people keep doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results, right? Keep dating the same type of person, different face, right? So it's really, let's start reflecting. Let's start thinking, you know, what are my deeper values too, right? What are my limiting beliefs about dating, sex, love, relationships, intimacy, commitment, connection? So that, again, you're coming to a place of consciousness in your love life, and you have a better awareness as to, you know, your dating and love life, so that you can make more empowered choices.
Yeah, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Do you have an answer to the question?
Well, I kind of interpreted the question slightly differently. So in my head, I was thinking of signs when it's time for you to focus on one person and kind of get offline. I don't know if that I could go into that angle. If it's too off, we don't have to. But
no, go with that angle, sure.
So a couple of the pillars I try to have clients get into is have a variety of dates. If you keep doing the let's just go meet at a bar and have a couple drinks standard thing, it's fine for the initial one. But if you keep doing the same date, you're not experiencing that person in different environments. So if you try to go in different events or environments, you could see that person in a different light, experiencing different things. If you keep doing the same thing, you're not going to learn anything. You're just repeating the same date. So another pillar is to be able to see, you know, not the first, second date, it could be, but seeing the other person's car. Then one of the pillars is each of you seeing where they live. I've had clients that have waited and a little bit longer, and the person they've dated has seen everything they need to see, and then they go to see, you know, how someone lives. Can you live with that? Are you willing to date that? And they wait too long to do that, and it's a couple months in, and then they finally go and see their place, and it's a deal breaker. Like, some of them would be bad stories, but I mean, someone could be like, you know, hoarding newspapers all over the place. And you just realize it's an environment that you couldn't see yourself comfortably, not even casually dating in. Because if you're dating, you're going to spend a couple weekends there. Do you think you can spend a couple weekends there? If the answer is no, you might want to find that out sooner rather than 3 months in. So try to have those pillars of learning about each other in different environments, and most importantly, how you spend your home environment.
Yeah, that I do see that being important. This is a question for Melissa. What were the best and worst dates you set up on Dinner with Cupid?
Well, obviously the best dates are the ones where they tell me they had chemistry, they talked for 5 hours, the whole rest of the room went away, and again, like, we're still waiting to hear from a couple that actually worked out. But the worst ones, I would say, are actually not the crashes and burns where they hate each other and everyone loves to read how they hated each other. The saddest ones to me are when it's a crisscross, when one person really liked the other and wanted to see them again, and the other didn't feel the same way. Because those are really the heartbreakers, right? You just want to, give the person a hug who put themselves out there and got shot down. But I guess I would say overall that the encouraging thing when I look back, because sometimes I will look back in the applications and go back, or when we were getting our reunion together, we were calling people who went on Cupid dates 2 years, 3 years ago. People often have found someone, like they've put themselves out there. Maybe this wasn't the route to their success, but they put themselves out there in like lots of different ways, and often like it works eventually.
Yeah.
So I have found, when I dialed them up, oh, I'm engaged now, I'm married now, so it's,
Clearly you all, have devoted your lives in some capacity to helping other people find love. Why do you think, it seems like a stupid question, but why do you think it's important to find a partner and to find love?
It's person specific, right? I could give you my answer, right? But everybody's going to have their own particular answer. Why it was important for me, I wanted somebody to share my life with. I wanted somebody to be my biggest supporter, and I wanted to be somebody's biggest cheerleader in their life. I wanted to start a family with somebody and share that with someone, and to have somebody to depend on, right? Somebody who could depend on me, somebody who I could trust. I think these are, deep down, those are a lot of the things that people are looking for, but it's really person specific. So I would encourage people to spend some time with that. Why do you want to create a relationship for yourself? What is it you're really looking for, yearning for? Because that often can help lead us to creating something healthy and happy. Spending time with those questions.
And when you say it's person specific, what kinds of things, if people were asking themselves those questions, what kinds of things come up? What are some of the reasons you've encountered that people are looking for love?
Probably similar to what I've said, but it just may be verbalized in different ways.
Yeah.
But they have gotten to a point where they just kind of don't want to be in it alone anymore, and they see friends pairing off and like other people sort of moving on in their life in that way. And there's this sort of deep yearning for something more. And so, it's oftentimes similar, again, to what I said. They want to share their life and their experiences with someone.
Yeah. Kevin, what do you think?
Well, so I guess the angle I could take is, when I got into this, there's not, I don't say I'm a guy's guy, but even though I look like a lumberjack right now, but typically there's no one out there representing the guys in online dating. There's a lot of, from the female angle, and I think guys are too prideful to ask for help. And I remember, being that guy a number of years ago, and fully admitting I had no clue what I was doing. So I didn't want men to feel that same pain point. And oftentimes they won't ask for help, or they'll go ask someone a friend who has been in a relationship for 10 years and never even online dated, right? So you can feel very lonely and lost, and I don't want guys, especially guys, but anybody in general, you shouldn't feel lost when it comes to online dating. There are a number of platforms now that I think they're out there, especially what we're trying to do at Icebrkr, but in seeing that client perspective at eFlirt, to know what it's like to be a 60 or a 40-year-old divorced mother of 3 and have to see what she has to go through, and having from the outside perspective, right, the great career, the great house, great family, and that relationship still didn't work. Like, that was not like a scared straight program to me, but living through my clients sometimes was a little bit draining. So you see that, and I realized working in E-Foot made me realize I wanted to be in a relationship, because I honestly just wanted to run and just be a playboy the rest of my life for quite a long time. And going through and see those clients and see when they had everything and it still didn't work, and how much they still wanted that, was very important. So I kind of shifted my own perspective and started taking my own advice, and eventually found the relationship that I'm in now, which of course was off of online. So.
I think it too can shift as you get older, right? Like in your 20s, it may be one thing, but then women who I work with in their 60s, so for them, why they really want to, they want a companion, they want somebody to travel the world with, right? And so again, it depends on kind of what decade you are in your life.
Right.
So it evolves.
Yeah, Melissa, what about you?
I just don't think people should be ashamed about the search for love. It's just a fundamental part of being human. And it gets me very angry when people call the column frivolous. Why is the Globe publishing this nonsense? It's the most fundamental thing humans do on this planet. We should cover it. We should respect it. People shouldn't be embarrassed. Not applying and being in the paper isn't for everyone, but having done it is nothing to be ashamed of.
Right.
I was going to say one thing. I think for millennials, I was reading an article in The Atlantic about, there was a psychologist therapist who was working with a lot of young millennial women, and they were embarrassed and guilty that they wanted love, that they wanted a relationship, because they've been told by society, focus on career, focus on education, right? And I guess my message to young women especially is you can focus on both. You can focus on having a great career, something you're passionate about, but you can also start focusing in on having a healthy relationship.
That leads me very well into the last question I'll ask you, because we have to wrap it up here at Make Way for Millennials. What would you say, in a couple words, to people who are out there still looking?
I would say one of the most important things is mindset. And within that is really staying hopeful, right? Because the second you sink into negativity and online dating stinks and apps stink and there's nobody out there and all the good ones are taken and there's nobody left in my city, and the second you sink into all these limiting beliefs, right, is the second it's over for you in your dating life, right? So you've got to find a way, and whether that's working with a coach, talking with a relationship mentor, working with a therapist, having healthy friends around you, right? Surrounding yourself with the people who are positive about relationships and love, right? It's keeping that hopefulness alive within you, that it can and will happen, but it takes effort.
I would give us a shameless self-promotion and mention Icebrkr. So we're trying to solve a lot of these pain points with people having optimized profiles and a guided wingman. We have a chatbot, but a guided wingman through the journey. So it feels like you don't have to feel uncertain, have confidence in what you're doing when you're uploading your profile, and then even ongoing to messaging. So we're launching in Valentine's Day. So we're hopefully looking to solve a lot of these problems, and we'll be available in the Boston area soon.
Be brave, be bold, put yourself out there. Maybe it's not doing dinner with Cupid, maybe it's an app, maybe it's real life, or maybe it is doing dinner with Cupid, so apply.
Great. Well, I just want to thank you all so much for your time. One more time, our guests are Neely Steinberg, dating coach and founder of The Love Trap. We have Kevin Murray, the founder and CEO of Icebrkr, and Melissa Shore, the editor of Dinner with Cupid at the Boston Globe. My name is Molly Boygan. I'm with WGBH. Thank you so much for joining us for Make Way for Millennials.